Welcome to So Guided, a spiritual travel guide for the curious. Join Carissa and Jenny, ordinary people exploring all the extraordinary ways we can connect to the universe. Each week, they investigate another spiritual modality and adventure through all the wild ways we can find high vibes, hope, and ultimately, enlightenment.
Welcome to another episode of So Guided. Today we're diving into our origin story. You're probably wondering, who are you and why are you even asking these questions? So now you have the questions, we've got some answers. Let's do this. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to today. What about you?
I'm so excited. And I feel like we've been talking about this episode, which is basically our origin story, and sharing a little bit about ourselves for a long time and trying to figure out how do we share, what do we share? And I think we're just going to let it out and let you guys kind of know what got us here, what the podcast is all about. So
Totally.
Like all our episodes, we're going to kick it off with a weekly woo-woo. And this one goes back a little farther and I think helps to kind of encapsulate, again, why we're sitting here today. So Jenny, you want to go first?
Sure. So one of my original reasons that I got into all of this was when I was very little, I had a lot of dreams come true. Mm-hmm. And my evidence of this is from my parents, where I just tell stories and then the next day something like that would happen. And probably the biggest one that set me on the path to discovery was I lived in California in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. Man, I think I was in junior high school, not to date myself. But I woke up in the middle of the night and my dream was almost a waking dream. And I saw the whole visual of San Francisco Bay Area. And as dreams will be, it was a weird cohesive dream where I was seeing everything at once, but it was a really grand view of San Francisco and the Bay. I saw the Golden Gate Bridge. I saw the Bay Bridge. I saw everything violently shaking. I saw the bridge break in half very dramatically in the middle and a red car go through the hole in the bridge. And it shook me to my core. It felt different than a regular dream.
Yeah.
I was so disturbed. I ran in my parents' room and cried to them and told them every detail of this dream. And they could not settle me down that night. I was just unnerved. And then fast forward to the next day and we're doing homework. It's like pre-dinner time. I want to say 4:30, 5 o'clock. We're watching the lead up to the World Series. It was the Battle of the Bay. And the biggest earthquake to hit the Bay Area since the 1904 earthquake hit at that moment.
Oh my God.
And our pool emptied out. Everything fell off the shelves.
How close were you? You were
very close.
Oh, so you were in
I lived in the Bay Area at the time. So I was probably like 45 miles.
Wow.
I mean, we were hit hard.
Yeah.
So our whole house shook. It felt like waves beneath our feet. We all went to doorways. It was like 2 hours of our life. And at that moment, I did not connect it at all to my dream.
God.
And it wasn't until we turned on the TV, everyone's rattled literally and figuratively, and we see the footage that the Bay Bridge broke in the middle and a red car went through very specifically. And my parents just turned around and we were already kind of traumatized with what just happened. But they looked at me and they said, "Oh my God, you dreamt this." And then that whole dream came back to me. And so ever after that, my family always almost let me explore ideas about this, but it planted a seed forever that there's something more to us. There's so much more.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my woo-woo. And it relates to kind of my origin story of being curious. And that was a big one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is crazy. Now, so do you want to keep going with your origin story and how that jumps off?
Fair enough. So yeah, just rewinding time. When I was born, it was within a month of when my grandmother passed away. So our family had a lot of sadness, and within 30 days, maybe even less, I came into the world. And again, this is reported by my parents, but I would just talk about my Grandma Elaine. I'd talk about, we'd be at the ice cream store and I'd say, "Oh, Grandma Elaine's favorite flavor is sherbet." But like it was everyday talk. And so that happened when I was little. I don't remember it. It's not in my memory. But pretty much, as I said, I had dreams all the time. And so that became something that wasn't weird. It was something that was embraced in my family, surprisingly. And so I always explored it. So as early as I could read, I'd start buying books on it.
Yep.
And I'd go down like, what can I do with this brain? I was almost then where we're at now with curiosity.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Anything was possible. And probably my anything is possible, my most greatest moment of my life of manifesting something that was really weird was around the time of junior high after the earthquake. I had gotten a book on how to do mental telepathy. Have I told you this story?
I think
this one makes me feel weird because it was like next level of attempting something.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, I'm so curious, and you're at an age where you're not even like filtering what life tells you you're being weird to ask or whatever. So this book talked about how you could actually send a message to someone. And I remember it like it was yesterday, but it was about midnight. I couldn't sleep. And so I had remembered the steps I had read, which was something like empty your mind.
Yep.
It's a movie screen. Make it black.
Okay.
A black, dark movie screen. And in white font, you're going to type your message. Now you pick the person you're sending the message to. And it says to start when you're experimenting, it should be someone you're close to. And my dad is one of my closest people in my whole world, as you know.
Yeah.
So I picked my dad, and his room's, and this is a 2-story house, and his room's down the hall. So I go through the steps, and then there's more where you lay on, you're supposed to like concentrate, collect your energy, send that vibe, imagine their mind being blank, sending this message, all the steps
I like
go
that
through.
step. So this is good. We can all try this at home.
Yeah, we could all try this
Yeah.
at home. I wish I had this book, but anyway, I did it. I laid in the bed, and I actually felt exhausted when I was done going through step 1 through 12, whatever it was. And I laid in bed, and I remember like laughing, like, what a dodo. Like, what a stupid thing. Nothing.
You're like a teenager?
I'm preteen.
Okay.
I'm probably like 13.
Okay.
And I laid in bed kind of feeling like, oh my God, that was dumb. Obviously that didn't work. And again, it's midnight. All of a sudden I hear noises downstairs, and my dad comes up the top of the steps into my room as if a zombie trance, hands me a glass of ice water, and turns and walks away from me and goes back to his room. And I just laid in my bed, and I was actually scared of my dad. It like scared me so much. I was like, what the F just happened? And I literally ran past him to my mom and was like, Mom! Anyway, it 100% worked.
What was the message you said to him?
Get me an ice water. I missed the most important part.
Oh my God. Oh no, I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, I missed the most important part. My message was, Dad, bring me an ice water. And I guess one of the prompts was something very simple, so you knew that you accomplished it. So it was send me an ice water. And my dad went down and it was specifically bring me an ice water was what I typed on his movie screen.
Wow.
So that was like crazy.
Did he say anything to you when he brought it to you? Or
No.
He was just like, oh my God.
I mean, it was literally like he was sleepwalking, and that's why he scared me. But I was also so excited because it was like, oh my gosh, look what you could do.
With your mind.
What's funny though is I actually have to say that in the power of that moment, something scared me to almost shut me down more. And over time, I stopped being interested in these things. I think I was always interested, but they freaked me out a little bit. And I think that's normal, and that's life, and that's our culture. And I'd say these things faded. I always sprinkled through, like junior high and high school would have the dreams or the knowings.
Yeah.
But they faded. And I went through normal life, to be honest. And especially when I get to the college years, as you know, like right before college, I had a couple of very traumatic things happen to me, which sent me darker and further away from even exploring it. I think I was depressed for quite a few years. And I think I didn't see any light or any stories or anything like that. And what's funny is my interest during those years was ghosts. I just love ghosts, but not in a weird way, not in ghosts. I just love ghosts. So that was
still was something like
that was as woo-woo as I got.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to adulthood, and it really, like, all of this has faded away significantly. Looking back, I think we both said that it still showed itself in various forms in our life that weren't as obvious. But then as much as our woo-woo side, I'd say, look at our normal lives. I was a wedding planner. I'm an interior designer. I'm a mom of twins. I have a very normal life, and none of it was woo-woo or weird since my childhood, truly. And then there was really a moment a couple years ago that I was starting to feel depressed again. And there was just this looming question, like, there has to be something more. I have the beautiful house. I have a career I love. I have a husband I love. I have the children and the dog. Everything should be good, but something just felt empty. And I think about the same time you and I were syncing up to having, at this point, my trauma was in my past and your trauma was in the present.
Right.
And we were, as friends will do, working through it together. At the same time, I was asking questions of what the fuck in this life. There's something more. And a book landed in my plate. Someone had recommended it to me. And it was Gabby Bernstein, Universe Has Your Back. And when I read the book, I had goosebumps every chapter because something was resonating. It was like all of a sudden a light was shining on my childhood where the childhood me knew what I lost along the way. And like my interest was piqued. And as you know, so like this part of the story is that Chris and I used to run together. And we laugh when we say run because our running is not pretty, people. and it's kind of like a walk with some oomph to it. In any case, at this time, we were like, oh my God, there's something more to the universe. Literally, so many signs started happening around us. Signs was our first exploration of asking for them. And honestly, it was like there was a hurricane of beautiful signs around us at the time, like, keep going, keep asking questions. And I remember every week, my other conversations with other people started to be boring. And I couldn't wait till I was going to run with you. And we started to almost have this podcast in friendship form. And every week we'd come and say, what was your sign? And our whole walk would be this cool conversation. And I started to, like, you and I were like just honestly hungry. We had a million subjects we wanted to learn about. You were super into angels. I was into reincarnation. So we started reading different books and deep diving internet, the different things. And then we'd report back to each other. And we started talking about like why other friendships, like we wanted to talk about this with everyone. And I know we can't be alone. So along this way, and as you'll hear in our podcasts that we've done and the ones that are coming, we just are ready to explore it all. And our entree to it all was signs. And it's all around us, but it fades in and out.
And we were together on these run walks to keep ourselves in the flow of the energy, because we get so excited and we'd be reminded there's so much more. And then we'd kind of come out of it and then we'd have to share with each other like, hey, I got the sign. And the other one would be so excited. And so I feel like part of this has been going from our belief, like we believe it, to being, hey, we want to know it. We want to know it in our soul that it's real. And there's so many different modalities and different things that can open you up. And I feel like that's where we started being like, oh my God, I never even heard of this. I never heard of this. And like, we were so hungry for knowledge of how there's more and spirits and ghosts and ways to get connected and meditation. It just exploded. And so we wanted to be the place where people can kind of get a little taste of some of these things and then go deeper into what you're interested in.
Totally.
So,
and then I want to hear your story, but just to round out about the podcast, I think the reason we came up with our format is we can honestly tell you we haven't totally attached to one version of any of these modalities that we're going to share each week. And I think our hope, our true wish is that this becomes truly interactive with you listening, what you're experiencing and what are you drawn to, and tell us new things to look into. We aren't into any one thing, although we've definitely learned in the journey that you will intuitively know that some things are your thing or not. And I almost see the podcast episode list is like your gut instinct is going to pick which ones you want to hear. And we're okay with that.
Exactly.
There are some episodes, I'm not going to lie, not going to tell you which ones we're not crazy interested in. But for all of you out there, I want it to be in the world if that's your thing that awakens you and you're like, I'm into that.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. I'm pretty much a normal mom in suburbia, USA. But with an asterisk.
Yeah, with an asterisk.
And I think my last final note is I think I would be avoiding something that is really true that I'll try to hide sometimes. But since Chris and I have been investigating, I would say I have definitely tapped into some very serious, like, awesome, cool things. And I'll share as we go.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sort my way through it. But I would definitely say that there are connections that I've been making and some channeling things. Meditations led me interesting routes. Yeah. So exploring by nature, I warn you guys, if you're coming on this journey, who knows what pops into your head. I'll share more later, but definitely it opens a lot of curious paths and for sure enhances your intuition.
And I think you make such a good point is you have to exercise this stuff.
You do.
You have to practice.
You have to practice.
We're still such newbies at it, but we're practicing and we're seeing how it expands and gets bigger. And I feel like we're so excited about it. And when we do start sharing a little bit with people besides each other, we find that other people have experiences and like they have this and they want to talk and they want more. So we're looking for that community.
Totally.
You know, who's new to it too and just want to share some of their experiences.
We're on the hunt for our people. Are you our tribe? We need you. Please tell us we're not weird. Please tell us you have questions. And sometimes you feel like you're pretty magical too.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now it's time for you, my love. Tell me more.
Okay. So I'll start with my woo-woo,
Yes.
a good one from the past and one of the ones that kind of kicked me off into this journey. I had also a dream. I had a dream, and within my dream, my grandma came to me, and she was with her sister, my Aunt Anne, who like was somebody she was super close to, and she was talking to me, and we were kind of sitting in this like room. This was kind of her house, but she was talking and she kept saying that she loved me, and we were having this conversation, and one of the things she kept saying was, it's a girl. And I'm like, oh.
So wait, pause. When is this in your life right now?
Recent. It's
Okay.
a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple years ago. So this is a very recent dream, and I'll go back to like history after this. But this is a couple years ago. She's saying to me, "It's a girl, and I have a little boy who's 3, and she never met him. She had passed away. And in my dream, I'm like, no, and like so it was like kind of weird. And I was like, he's a boy. I'm like, she like, and just in my dream, I thought she was confused that Van because I knew she was talking about a baby, and she was like, it's a girl, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, well, Van's a boy. And the dream was so real, and it was one of those things where I 100% knew, and it wasn't even believed, I knew that my grandma had visited me in a dream. And she had done it one other time before since she had passed, and it was the same feeling where when I woke up, I was so excited that I had seen my grandma. I told my husband, I told my mom, which is it's her mom, and when I told everyone of the experience, I left out that she kept saying it's a girl because I felt like
I'm editing her wrong information.
I'm editing her wrong information. I'm like I don't want to take away from the fact I knew it was so real. Like
Yes.
I'm like I don't want to. And if I say it's a girl, everyone's gonna be like, oh, that's like I'm like oh okay, it's just a dream. She doesn't even know what you're talking. Like my grandma was wrong. Exactly, editing her wrong information because I wanted everyone to realize how real it was because I was so excited. I talked about. I probably told you like it was so intense and it was so like cool. So fast forward not too long after, a couple weeks after, I actually found out I was like surprised pregnant. So
surprise
pregnant. I had no idea. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh. And to no surprise at all, it was a girl. So I was just like, oh my God. So it came full circle. And I was like, oh my God. See, it further proved that my grandma had been there. And it was so cool and so validating that she had been there. And obviously, I was so close to her. And unfortunately, like I actually like lost the baby. And that really set me on this spiritual journey. I have actually been very blessed in my life where I have never really been depressed. And I've seen family members and people, and I've seen it from the outside and never realized what it was. And I actually, after this, I did get very depressed. It was actually Jenny who kind of came to me and was like, hey, you need to read this book. It's like Universe Has Your Back. She said, you have to read this book. You have to go get acupuncture. She's like, we're going to
here's my therapist.
Yeah. She's like, and here's my therapist. So yes, therapy is real too. So here's my therapist. So I started her therapist too. And so she kind of put me on this track, and I'm a doer. I'm very action orientated. So when she had me do these things, I was like, anything to make me stop feeling this way. Like I've just never felt this way, and it was really hard. And so we started on this journey, and I was ready for it, and I was open for it. And when I look back on my life, there's reasons why. So again, I don't remember having like psychic gifts when I was little, but I was always super into my sign as a Scorpio. I was always into horoscopes and mediums and like the Ouija board when I was 7 or 8, like with friends. And I remember seeing a ghost in my room one time, like sitting there. And I remember looking and seeing it and being so clear. And I had glasses since I've been in 4th grade. So I didn't have my glasses on. So I put my glasses on, and I can still to this day remember it. And I was like, oh my God, there's like a old fashioned ghost sitting in my room. And it wasn't scary, but I remember like things like that happening. And my grandma, the one who came to me, always said that she was a psychic. So I knew it was like in my blood. And she had told me,
I wish we could talk to her now.
Oh my God. Well, you know what gets me like, to this day, I've told my mom, I've told you too. She told me so many times that she was psychic that I did this, what do you call the speech at the funeral? What do you call it when you do a speech at the funeral? whatever it's called. You don't know what you're like.
No, it's blanking.
Oh my God. Well, I did this speech at her funeral, and I actually mentioned that grandma has said she was psychic so many times, because that was something that I don't think she shared with everyone, but she shared with me, and she knew I was going to have twins. She told me far before I was going to have twins. She knew I was going to move to Chicago. Like, she called major events in my life, like way before they happened, or way before they were even in the realm of me thinking about them or thinking that. So again, I knew like she was psychic. I, to this day, regret I didn't dig more. And I even say to my mom, how didn't she say that? How did she tell me she was psychic and I didn't dig so deep? So again, looking back, like, it was always something that's part of my life, and I'm a very curious person, so it still surprises me I didn't. But regardless, so that was something that was a part of my life. Like, she was obviously very important to me. And like, I saw the ghosts. I lived in a haunted house when I was in Florence. I studied abroad and lived in a haunted house. And to this day, like, remember like a ghost blowing on my cheek. And like, again, that was a little bit more on like the eerie side, but it was, I think, a gateway to the spirituality that I had inside of me. And I've always been a very big believer. Like, I've always believed in spirits. I believed in afterlife. I could even look back on my life of like things that have happened or I've manifested and didn't even at the time know I was manifesting them. And they just kind of came to fruition. And I'm like, oh, I look back and like things I knew were going to happen, happened. But I think one of the things that I've realized now is my ego is also very much around. I'm a big thinker, so I'm in my head a lot. And so as we started doing this running and this spiritual journey, I realized I had to get out of my mind a little bit and quiet it. And again, if I was going to heal and continue to grieve, like, I had to be in a different space and be open to things and like feel from the heart, not from the head, which I've kind of done my whole life. And so I feel like there had been these blockers, like there's been this like spirit and this like other side that I wanted to explore and I wanted to have like come in, but I've just been in my head going along. And I think it took a major, I don't want to call it trauma, but something major in my life to crack me open. And that's what happened. Like, I hadn't had something like this that really just completely changed me as a person, and this event did. And so I feel like I know our listeners probably feel the same way. There's sometimes it takes something very major to have you reevaluate what's important in life and just in general, like how we perceive the world. And so over the past couple of years, I think my whole perspective has just shifted and changed. And my curiosity around these subjects and conversations and the books I read have changed. It's just been open so much more. And one of the things that I was so desperate for knowledge and for also confirmation that it's real. We get these signs in our face and then we're like, wait a second, am I imagining this? And like, so like my thirst for like confirmation has been,
real.
It's very real. And so I was looking for podcasts like this. Like, I was looking for something where I could say, I don't even know what's out there. Show me some of the options I have. Like, you know, open me up, like help me and do this, you know, like help me find my way. And so that's like, I think what we're hoping to be for people is like a quick one-stop shop to kind of get like a little bit of an appetizer onto an entree of different things. And we're still so in it that we enjoy talking about it and learning about it. And so, and it's helped so much. Like, and again, like, it doesn't mean I'm not still sad or grieving, but I feel like there's just such a different approach. And I just have been able to have such amazing experiences since I've opened up more and reaffirmed that there's more to life, that we really are spirits living like, you know, a human existence versus humans living, you know, how do you say it? What is it?
You said it right.
I said it right? Okay, good. Yeah, I feel like that's where I am. I feel like that's my long or short-winded, I don't know, version of how I ended up here.
That's the point. I think we got to talk where we came from or why we're even arrived at it. But just to say, like, I was lucky enough to be your friend before and after. And I bore witness to this really, really sad moment in your life. And I think this is important because it must be a part of why we have to talk at all, is that if you are going through something, I don't know how to say this, but like, you're more beautiful, pure, like, it makes me cry.
Oh, that's so nice.
Like, I witnessed my friend and you were awesome before.
Yeah.
And then this thing happened and you're a new spirit or light in this world, to me even.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice.
And so having watched someone I'm so close to go through something like that tells me that when we are going through these hard things, And sometimes you want to punch someone in the fucking face when they say it. Because like, this hurts. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I know.
I'm getting riled up. The F word comes out. But the truth is like these things are meant for us to be awoken. To say there's more. Like this can't be it. And why? And you are an exact example of that. Like you're just a more joyful, spiritual still feels like a weird word. If I'm being honest. Yeah. Because it's not religious based. When we use that word spiritual, it doesn't mean a religious thing. It means in touch with whatever this energy is.
Right.
For the lack of a better, the flow of the universe.
Yeah.
But I really do. I think it was beautiful because probably my tear down of myself happened long ago. And then my awakening was so much further away.
Yeah.
That I wasn't old enough to process it in a way that you did. And you did it quite maturely, if I'm honest.
Thank you. I mean,
but one of my questions for you, and I'll put it back at me, is, so we've been exploring a bunch of things for the podcast, but out of our own curiosity, a billion subjects. And when we're talking about them, of course, the list is eluding me, but it's basically our episode title list.
Yeah.
But, ghosts, meditation, crystals, tarot cards,
signs,
astral projection.
Angels' dreams.
All the things. So I have a question. If you were to name just a couple of your favorites that we explored that you're drawn to, what are they?
I would say right off the bat, it would be angels, which I had no
you didn't.
Understanding or interest of at all. There was no religious, affinity towards that in the past. But upon further understanding and knowledge, that was something that's really, really cool. Like the angels and the guides and like those on the other side that kind of help us throughout our life. And I feel like that has been a big one. Also, even like oracle cards have been something that I've been super drawn to. The horoscopes and like getting deeper. Like there's so many, it's not just like, oh, you're a Scorpio. There's like so many different like time that you were born. And like, I feel like those have been super interesting to me. What about you?
The one that I was the most shocked to be drawn to as far as a modality of connection is meditating.
Yes.
I'm not a still brain person. I'm a planner. I was literally a wedding planner. Now I'm an interior designer and plan that for people. Yeah. So the idea of sitting for any length, I can't sit and get my nails done. I think of all the things I have to do, let alone sit down and say, I'm going to be silent in my mind. So it was really a shock to me when I did start meditating that I could sit in silence. So anyhow, I love meditating, but on the other more fun stuff, as you know, I've always been into reincarnation.
Yes.
My obsession with reincarnation, or if it's real or not, or just exploring stories, that's never faded in my life.
Yeah.
I have always been so curious about it. So that's peaked even further.
Yep.
And that's something I could deep dive down one day. What else? Psychic,
yeah.
So obviously because of some of the things from my past, that was one big one. And I've read some books, and that was kind of what I was alluding to.
Yeah. On
our 2-year journey, I read a couple of books, and while I was reading them to prompt psychic things to happen, they were happening.
Yeah.
So that's
so cool.
The subject that I couldn't be more interested in, and the one that scares me the most. So I kind of shut it down, like, okay, some weird stuff happening, but I love that. And oracle cards, we both love
we like those. Yep.
So I would have never thought in a million years, oracle cards, if you don't know that term, would be a tarot card, but there's a million decks. They could be angels, flowers, goddesses, whatever you want. And basically I pull one after my meditation every morning now to just kind of get a state of affairs, if you will, from my guides of the universe. And it feels like another moment that someone could message.
Yep.
But I can't wait to find out what we're going to uncover together we haven't yet. There's so many subjects.
So much. There's so many, and we're so excited, and we'll be sharing our journey with you and hoping that you guys come on the journey with us and build the community of those new to the more, I guess. Right?
That believe, don't believe.
Yeah, that believe, don't believe, that want to go from believing to knowing, which is our goal. And again, like our little forte is the first thing was signs. Yes. And every book we read says, ask for a sign. And whether you're on the right path or not, if you ask for it, it will come in some way, shape, or form. Right. So thanks for listening to our origin story, and more to come.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You're our people. We want to hear your stories too.
Thank you for listening. We've loved being your spiritual travel guides and hope this made you feel more connected. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast player. Your reviews help us create the guide that you are looking for. We'd also love to hear your stories.
You could follow and share your experiences with us on Instagram at So Guided Podcast. Your story might just be our next weekly woo-woo. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the universe. And remember, stay curious, ask the questions. You are so guided.